because we just started. Hey, Scott, how's it going?
Hey, good, Brett. How you been doing today?
Not too bad. Yeah, we were just talking before we record here. We hit the record button. Is what we're doing, what this is all about. So, I just wanted to introduce Scott, and thanks for being like the first guest to this craziness that we're gonna do.
Well, it sounds like an awesome podcast.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see what I didn't know. So we were just making comments about this. I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. You see a lot of cool podcasts out there, and I don't. There's a bunch of specific podcasts, but there's nothing like just off the cuff. Let's talk about the utility industry. Let's talk about leadership. Let's talk about whatever we want to talk about. And some have specific news stories which we could talk about what's going on. But other than that, I just wanted to have a close friend and colleague on, and just kind of talk about whatever.
You bet.
I don't know. So no rules. There's no rules to this. Yeah, we'll put it up on YouTube, I think, and we'll see how that goes. We have another guy who's going to maybe make some cool intros for us. I think at one point I talked about, I kind of have an office set up here, but it would be really nice to get some like good K cameras and have like a professional studio, you know what I'm saying, where you have like
Yeah.
switch. Well, this should switch cameras for us, but like have something set up where it's just gonna, it just looks like two schmoes sitting on the couch talking about, whatever. So
Yeah, have an actual
that's my
studio.
idea. Yeah, that's my idea.
Yeah, some friends of mine, he's a professor up at Wayne State here. He runs a D&D group on Friday nights that he streams live and then throws up the recordings on YouTube and stuff like that. And they have gone through several technology refreshes to get things operating well, and they, it's still not ideal because the area, the room that they're in is in a basement, and there's a dance studio up above. So if they're playing and the dance studio is going, there's issues. And he has a he has a he has a goal of getting a lot better room for that kind of stuff. It's Flyover Demographics. That's the name of his media company, if you put it that way, I guess.
Really?
And I think it's a pretty neat idea. I mean, and it's kind of fun being on there. I've been on several. We put together like a Tuesday night science fiction campaign that we would do, which was pretty fun.
Okay,
But the
can you give
timing
me?
and schedules and stuff
I
got
have
in the
never
way.
played D&D, but every one of my friends has. So can you give me the high level? What is D&D in this scenario? What? So you have a camera that you're recording the top of the board. Is that what you're doing, or what?
They have several cameras. So he has, I think he has one, two, three, four, five cameras. One that records the table, one that kind of records the players around there, and like six different microphones. And then it feeds into a mixing board where you know, he puts together an episode basically. But he just records our entire session, and then puts together an episode. And we stream live too. I mean,
Right, right. We could do that, but I don't know if anyone would ever want to listen to us live.
right, right. I think a little
So
bit of curation sometimes is probably good, but
is this a
a lot of people
long
do the
thing?
live stuff.
Oh yeah, they got to. Is this a long? This is a long thing, right? This multi-hour
Oh,
streams.
oh yeah. I mean, typical, D&D sessions or any role-playing game session is typically 3 to 6 hours. I mean, I've had some go as long as 12 hours.
Oh my. So, but you have to. Okay, so there's like the Isn't there a dungeon master? However you say that? Isn't there
Yeah,
a
game master, dungeon
game
master,
master?
you know,
Okay, okay.
facilitator. That's just the person that's kind of interpreting. They're the judge of actions, and they're the kind of not teller of the story. They have a story, that the characters are kind of going along with. But when you play more open-ended D&D, the characters more often than not go off in a direction that they want to go off on, and you have to improvise a lot about what's happening
Yeah.
in the
See,
world. And
I would think you'd have to like have a theater degree or something. I mean, you have to be very
just long
outspoken
years
and
of self-abuse thinking about it. I've been playing D&D
okay.
since like 1982, when I was 12
Right.
years
It's been
old.
out. It's been out a while. Okay, you'll have to get me involved in that at some point.
Yeah, yeah, we might have to have a noobs session.
Oh yeah, that's usually what that's. I'm new. I'm a noob for a lot of things, so I'm not afraid to admit that. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's fun.
I'm an ignorant noob about a lot of things. I'll say that.
Oh, exactly. You know what's crazy? One of the things I was just dealing with as a system's popping up on us is all these AI recommendations. Like, literally, I'm just trying to use the software, and it's like, hey, do you want to use AI for this? It's not okay. I get it. This AI thing, okay, it's good, but it's
I love AI in one aspect. When I can use it as a tool that helps me out, which it does. Like when I'm programming or something like that, it's like I hate date time conversions in SQL. And so I'll just pop on there, hey, I got this Oracle date time slot. I need to query it, through an open query in SQL. How do I do the frickin' conversion? Because I hate date time conversions. Asking specific things that are wanting answers to, I think it's very good at that.
well, it doesn't it. The problem with it is it's self assured. Like it wants to confirm whatever your thoughts are. It's going to
It
agree
it
with
wants to
you.
be right.
It wants to be right.
Right. It doesn't want to give a wrong answer, so it ends up giving a lot of half-assed and wrong answers. I mean, like if you stick a query in there, like say there's a query you're trying to comprehend, you're walking to one that someone else wrote, and you're like, hey, what's this doing? It's very good at giving you a high-level overview of that, but then if you ask it to start adjusting that, it can start doing things wrong. And so you kind of have to know kind of what you're expecting. That's mainly the way I use it, and also like when I'm writing, I'll stick it in there and I'll be like, hey, correct this for punctuation and grammar, if something doesn't sound right or I'm missing words, and it's good at that kind of stuff too.
Yeah,
But all
it's
these
funny.
AI recommendations and all these apps, it's I think that's just ridiculous. I don't know if you heard about the latest thing they're doing with the Google AI that goes through your email and like summarizes stuff like that. Well, they found a way to inject that and or inject suggestions in there to where they can to where it's like it starts summarizing your email and then at the end it says, "Oh, you need to reset your Google password. Click on this link." And so they're using
Um,
for phishing.
yeah. What's the okay? Yeah, that's terrible and terrifying. What about the Amazon incorporation? Doesn't it like, hey, do you want to buy toilet paper? Because you've been looking at toilet paper a lot.
Yeah,
It's like, oh, by
it's
the way,
like
I already bought toilet paper for you, and it's at your door outside.
yeah, yeah.
You're welcome.
We have an Alexa at the house. My wife likes to have an Alexa, and I'll say there's some things that it does nice, like turn on and off lights. But
Yeah,
it's really
so does the
annoying.
light switch if you get up and go
Yeah.
with it.
Well, you get used to a certain thing. It's commanding it around. Turn off this light. And you don't have to
You can
walk
be
all that
authoritative.
distance and
Yeah, you
shut
can
it
be
off
authoritative.
yourself.
Yeah,
God, we're
perfect.
Americans. I mean,
We have a bunch of. We don't have any Alexis, but we have Google. We have the Google hubs, and
okay.
so it shows. Okay, so it shows the time. It shows maybe a calendar, some photo memories. If you get, if the doorbell rings, it'll show the front door.
Yep.
That's
Yep.
kind of cool. But if you start to ask it, like, well, hey, who won the Super Bowl last year? You won't. It doesn't like. Hey, I don't know that, but let me show you some results. And then it gives you a web page with like 7-point font that you have to go over to it, and you're like, no, I'm not doing this. Like
Right.
it's
Right.
terrible. And
What
maybe
I
at
hate
some
about
point,
the Alexa specifically is that it's like, hey, we saw you were browsing for this product, because you see you have a message on there. So, Alexa, what's my message? And it's like, I saw you were browsing for this product and it's on sale right now, and it's like, Alexa, shut up. Oh, she's going off in the background because she
oh
heard me
yeah,
say,
you can't see the e word. Yeah, a word. You can't say the a word. You gotta be careful. Okay,
Alexa,
Scott.
cancel. Alexa, cancel. I forgot my wife has one in here.
Okay, Scott. Give me the high level review. Uh, what do you do? 8 to 5,
What,
7,
what,
7 to 3, or
what
whatever
do I
your
do
hours are.
7 to 3?
What do you do?
a lot of what we do is is minor help desk stuff. I mean, there's 1,000 things that break per day, whether it's Windows or Adobe won't print or our CIS software doesn't come up. There's always little issues. So we take care of those, of course. You know, and then beyond that, we're a small utility company, so the IT people wear a lot of hats. Whereas in a
Hmm.
bigger corporation, you might have the IT department split out. You might have a GIS department. You might have a metering department. You might have a cybersecurity department. You might have CIS support specifically, or as they say some places, specifically. Sorry, but in a
You're
small
exactly
utility,
right. Yes,
you got to wear all those hats, and so
you do.
anything that comes up, you kind of have to address. Like today, I was dealing with communication to all the staff about, yes, our HVAC system is borked. The replacement motor we ordered in for it blew up. Another replacement motor is supposed to be in Friday. That's why it's hot in the building. You know, yes, and it was cold yesterday because we were aware that the other one had, we have two engines in there. One had blown up. We replaced it, and then the other blew up. It's a 20-year-old system. But anyways,
Right.
so we shut off all the open space reheaters because people could set temperatures. So we shut all those off. We turned the air conditioning down to as low as it'll go at night so we could cool the building off because it was going to be 102 degrees today. And then people are complaining when they get in that it's too cold, but then by the afternoon they're complaining it's too hot. And so that's one of the issues I was dealing with today. Um, not one of
Yeah.
the fun issues.
So I'll fill the audience in a little bit. We work at similar size electric utilities here in Nebraska. Nebraska, I could tell you because obviously I have a hat. But yeah, we do. We wear multiple hats. So we've had employees come to work for us and leave us that work for smaller utilities than us and even bigger size. And so they always find it fascinating. They say, "Oh, look what all you're doing," and then they might say, "Hey, we need to make this change right away," and you can get that stuff done quickly. Whereas someone with a larger utility, a larger organization, larger company, hey, we don't need to talk to Bill, Randy, James, Cynthia. We don't, they can get through the red tape quicker.
Right.
So I think innovation sort of appears in moments in smaller utilities.
You can certainly implement it a lot faster in a small utility than you can in a large utility.
You know what? I've never said this before, but it kind of reminds me of like, in a moment there's startup sort of talks, right? Between you and your peers. There's might be like, maybe five of you, three of you, two of you, whatever it is. You're talking about things that a startup would do.
Right.
Because you have the funding, it's there, it's budgeted. It's kind of cool. That's kind of why I like.
I love it from that aspect, because I often comment to AJ, like even on, every day, I'm like, you know, this is a death by thousand tiny cuts day. It's like if we weren't around making all these systems work, they just wouldn't work. You know,
Hmm.
at the same time, those are those are kind of fun issues because they take you away from, they allow you to do a variety of stuff every day. And when you want to innovate, when you want to do something, you can move very quickly to do it, especially if it's a good idea. And like you said, you have the funding there to do it. Like just last week, we've been we've been kind of poking around at the LNG multi-speak interface, and we've got that to where we can actually query meters and stuff like that. But we wanted to do more. It's like, wouldn't it be great if we could create a script that would identify all our missing meters from the previous day, go out and actually talk to those meters and say, hey, what are the readings? And then it'd create a file that was be imported into our MDM server. Because the way it is right now, we can miss data, in our MDM server. We can just miss it. Now, we get 99.9% of it right now, but it'd be nice to get 100% of that data. And so
Hmm.
we started poking around. We found this, which is Common Information Model, which is put out by the wholesale utility business that's been around for a long time, that LNG has an interface for. And so we started poking around that. and we have been able to do a lot more than we could with multi-speak. And that whole thing just came about like in the last 4 days. It's like
Right.
we discover this, we start researching it, looking at it, and going forward with it. you know,
Yeah.
which is fun. I haven't personally got to play around with it very much because AJ's been doing a lot of that development on that, but it's right up both our alleys of you know, it's something different to do every day.
You know what's also nice about that is not just the because of the size, but well, in a way, your endpoint counts are smaller. You have less workstation. So licensing and fees and all of that, yes, they're expensive, but you're not paying, larger utility IOU size fees and licensing.
Right, right. You're not. I mean, yeah, yeah. It may seem like an egregious amount sometimes, but then you're also you don't have to have the people hired to support that also. When you're a
Hmm.
smaller utility. In a bigger utility where, you know, like if we had 20,000 meters, there'd probably have to be a guy there that did metering. you know, and
Right.
and we're one of
Right.
the only utilities in Nebraska that doesn't have a metering department. I mean, the IT department is the metering department. Um,
Yeah.
but at scale, you'd have to be paying employees to do certain things, and with those licenses also come sometimes more people to do it. And that's a
It
big
does.
cost too.
It does. One of the things I talked with a larger utility in Nebraska, and we won't name names, obviously, but if you to connect the dots, you will. They're larger, so one of the things that has to happen is the rollout and containment of their legacy platforms. So before
Yep.
they can even jump on the new ones, they have to make sure that the legacy ones will still be performing 100%, 99% as they move. And these are like 3, 5 year projects. It's not just, hey, go unplug that server, plug that one in, change the IP address, boom, we're good to go. It's a long,
They have to
long
have planning
process.
to it when they're bigger utility. Plus, then they have to have staff training. I mean, and staff buy-in too to new processes. Whereas in a smaller utility like ours, it's easier to get the staff buy-in sometimes.
Yeah, I've always when I early on I always well I've always been kind of sick of that shiny seller PDF pamphlet on the wall that says this system will do everything under the rainbow, and it connects to everything, it talks to everything, and you're good to go. Just plug it in. I was convinced early on that that was the case. I quickly learned that that's not.
Yeah, when they say it just works with their software and stuff, it's that is never the case. There's always things that have to happen behind the scenes for any integration.
So, what you're kind of like me. I don't think I would do anything else. I like the utility industry.
Once it
Um,
has you, it has you.
it does. And some of us are fortunate enough we'll have, the golden handcuff situation where you're like, oh gosh, I don't know where else to go, what to do.
Right, right.
I always give the metaphor. I am I have a lot of experience and knowledge, but that's probably only because I know where all the dead bodies are buried, right? Um, if I go anywhere else, I'd have to go discover their dead bodies, and it might take me a while. So I don't
It's
know.
hard to translate the things you do even to another utility of the same size because it's a different set of people, it's a different set of social circumstances for how things operate and flow and different budgets, different levels of understanding. So what works at one utility may not work at the next.
Exactly. What is the most what's something that you're in our job, both of ours, that people do not understand about the industry until they work in it? What do you think that is?
I don't know. I don't have a lot of frame of reference for that, but
I
I
know. I don't either.
I think that, in talking to my colleague, where, he came in fresh from college and they're exposed to ideas on work. They've talked to other graduates, how they're working and stuff like that. The amount of, in a small utility at least, the amount of hats you need to wear, I think if people knew about it up front, it would seem pretty daunting. Just because, I mean, you're the person or you're the team of two that has to get that stuff done. So it's like, okay, we're going to deal with HVAC today, because it has a computer attached. Or, we're the fuel pump keypad is bad. Well, okay,
Right.
today we're going to deal with the fuel pump keypad because, it has a computer attached. Just I think the amount of stuff that you know you
Yeah.
have to you have to stay on top of, couldn't be daunting, but it feels natural. I think, Um, I don't know if that's answering your question or not. When I first put out the job position, I listed up.
Yeah, that's cool, man. I know. I don't think I have enough friends that haven't done anything else either, like either in the utility industry. You know what I get is regard to like outside perspective is one, it's they don't know beyond the power pole or I was told long ago from a boss that says, you call it a telephone pole, you're gonna leave because that's not what it is. I'm like, okay.
I was guilty of that when I first entered the business.
Yeah. So, you know what's funny? I was gonna fill people in on this too. I remember when I first met you, I think we were heading down to maybe a comp. Is it what is our? It was our IT conference, I believe. I
It
think
was
you
an IT
picked.
conference or it was a Canon conference, or
It
maybe
could have been.
maybe we met at an IT conference and then like the next week or month later we were at the Canon conference up in
Yeah,
Minneapolis.
that could be. Yeah, those were good products. Um, so, gosh, I remember carrying around those like iLex and different like CCU cards, and oh my gosh, like that was fun. Um,
Oh my God.
you know, we have, um, I have a employee that's just leaving now. He's been there for 46 years, and so. Um, one of the things I just think is interesting is I've gained a lot of like I've gained a lot of knowledge from this guy, but I know exactly where his knowledge stops. So it's like I don't ask him beyond that. But if you're in this technology or in this date range, this guy's gonna know.
Right.
Um, and then he usually gets like, oh yeah, we put that in when Kennedy was assassinated. And usually it's like there's like a biblical story or a time frame of history event that happened when we installed this transformer.
So yeah, funny story about that one. When I first started in the business, it was a lot of older linemen. They'd been there 30, 20, 30 years, some of them more than that. And I'd hear the radio chatter. And, as I got more active, because I was hired, my initial project was the AMR meter rollout. So I got exposed to the linemen a lot because, I was like, well, how hard can a meter be to change? I'll go out and help them change them. So I was out with them a lot. And they would always talk on the radio and it'd be like the directions they would give, they wouldn't give, like street number, legal address or anything like that.
Mm.
They'd be like, oh yeah, you remember down near the Smith house, 2.5 miles east there where we put in that riser, you know, and they'd be like, oh yeah, yeah, I know, I'll meet you there. And so, I didn't know what the hell they were talking about. So sometimes I'd just get on the radio and, I'd be like, you know, Kurt was one of the foremen. I'd be like, hey, Kurt, I'm over at the old Smith farmstead, like where you guys put in the A1 1555. And, I was just naming numbers.
And like I
I'd
like
just make shit up.
the best one is like, oh hey, turn by, the old Shell gas station. You get out there and you're like nothing but desolate cornfields, and you're like,
Yeah.
well, no, that was taken out in 1981. But that's where it was. Surprising you didn't know that.
Yeah. My favorite one was when they'd refer to little villages that are no longer there. It'd be like,
Oh
oh,
yeah.
yeah. Like, you get out there and it's like,
Shoot, that
why do
is
you
fun.
call it this? There's only an outbuilding here now. And they're like, oh, no, there used to be, there used to be people here.
Yeah,
Okay.
it is. It is funny. Um, Gosh, I don't know. Like we talked about, I don't know. I don't know what else I would be doing besides this. What do you like? You mentioned about the D&D thing. Is there anything else that you like to do besides, what else do you like to do to unplug, so to
Oh,
speak?
well, now that the kids are raised and stuff like that, you're kind of left with a lot of time on your hands. So the
Yeah, empty
first thing
nest.
I did was, went out and got another part-time job as a bartender because, you know, when I was in college and a little bit after that, I thought about, hey, it'd be kind of neat being a bartender. Never did do it, and so
So now, when you
I
mean
got
bartender, do you mean you get the Coors Light out of the cooler and you put it on the deal, or are you throwing around, you know, mixing drinks and going crazy?
so I wouldn't want to work at a bar per se, and I love breweries. I love different types of beer, and so we had a brewery start up here in town. I became friends with the owner, and one day because I'm bored, I'm just like, hey, you want to hire me? I've always wanted to try to do this, and I'll tell you right away if I don't like it. I'll give you some notice before I'm off the schedule, you know.
Yeah,
And he says, yeah, let's do it. And now I think I've been working there like 3 or 4 years part time.
yeah. I've always kind of wondered that too, but I mean, I have to get in the retirement age. Now, I've done some other like consulting work, and I've started a advisory firm, and I would like to do that more, but it would just take way much more travel and time and commitment, and that's maybe something I would do. Of course, like after, like, maybe the kids are out, kind of like you.
Yeah,
Um,
I always like looking at different businesses and having owned some businesses before I got into this industry. And one of the reasons why I wanted to work at a brewery was to see the business behind it. Because I always fancied myself that I could be it'd be fun brewing. And I told Greg after about 2 weeks of working there, I said, "You've quickly disabused me of the notion that I ever want to be a brewer." But I am fascinated by the alcohol business in general, and he ended up getting into distilling too, and then he bought out another distillery here in Nebraska called Cooper Chase, and so now we do Cooper Chase up there, plus his own distillations, plus the brewery, and that business really fascinates me. Um, it, it does, and I could see myself when I retire. It might be kind of fun to become like a booze salesman,
oh yeah,
or something like hard liquor salesman. I always tended to like the wholesale sides of business more than like the retail dealing with the end user. I don't like that. I like dealing with businesses. When I was in business, we would buy 5,000 CD-ROMs and we'd sell them to businesses. This business would take 100, this business would take 50, this business would take 25. So we were dealing business to business. Um, and I've always liked that a lot better than I'm going to sell you something, you, you know,
yeah,
um, because there's economies of scale that, as far as money goes, that, um, just just you can make enough money in one sale for to a business, and you might have to sell to 50 or 100 people to make that same amount of money,
yeah.
you
It's
know.
like, okay, yeah. It's like, do you want to sell one Ferrari or, like, 15 Toyota Corollas?
Right, exactly, and so I still do business things like you mentioned the CCUs earlier on. There was two types. There was the 9600 system and there was a 12.5, wasn't there? Or, I can't remember what the other one was.
Kilohertz. Is that what you're talking about? The line
Yep.
frequency?
Um, and the 9600 one was particularly rare in the United States, and 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 I knew a lot of the companies in Nebraska that were shit canning them, and then I met a utility out on the East Coast that was planning on cash cowing it out, and so they were looking for parts. So I called around. I got prices on parts. I called them up and told them the price for the parts, and I, you know, then I went around and bought them from the utilities here and sold them to the utility there, and you
Yes.
know, I always kind of look out for things to do like that. Buying and selling. That's I love doing that.
That is the commerce, of the things that, and the system that we live in. So that's a good, it's a good
Yeah,
trait to have.
yeah,
Gosh. Yeah, that's funny. I think we have this old Motorola system. You guys probably did too. And I swear to God, like, he was probably taking those old ones and selling them to New Guinea or somewhere. They were going somewhere.
Yeah.
He's telling
Yep.
me that they're useless, but then I see on the news somebody's carrying the same one around that with the same truck
Yeah.
number. You know.
Yep. I mean, there's a lot of that stuff. The surplus business is a good business to get into, especially if you get in the right uh, niche on it. I mean,
Oh,
it's
dude, I've watched some weird stuff with the surplus. Like people collect some weird stuff, and a lot of it's
oh
military.
man,
You see a lot of military stuff, but um, yeah, that's crazy. Not something I ever thought about. That kind of reminds me of like Storage Wars, where you go start bidding on
yep.
like, random.
And I've thought about doing something like Storage Wars even before Storage Wars was around, but the amount of time and labor you put into that for the amount of profit you make, it's like, no, I'll just sit at home and drink a beer and grill a steak.
My luck. I can say that I just say that look, some of us have luck, some of us don't, or it doesn't mean anything. But I'd buy one of those things, and I could have. I'd look at it and be like a stack of gold bars. But then I get in there and it's like one of those cartoon ones where you push it over and it's nothing
Yep.
but
Oh, that
nothing.
that happens. That's happened to me. You know, when I was in the business of buying and selling overstocked and return computer merchandise back when that was lucrative. Back when Gateway was in its heyday. You know, sometimes you'd buy some dogs. And you'd lose money. And my theory was it's just like, well, let's just make more money than we lose. you know,
Yeah, that's good. It's a good thing to do.
it always seemed to work out until it didn't.
Yeah, I always tell my wife we should probably make more than we spend. That's important.
Yeah, don't be like the United States government.
Yeah, that's it is. It's just that's one of those things, man. I don't think what one of the questions I had was like, are you would you die on this utility hill, this technology hill? I think I would. I think I'd probably stay in the game. Um, I
You
don't.
know, I've thought about that a lot, and you know, it's fun going into work every day, and you can't get better than that. B, it pays well. C, it's really not that onerous. I mean, it's one of those jobs where when you leave it, you can leave it there, and
Hmm.
when you get there, you just pick it back up. You know, it's not
Yeah.
like some help desks where it's like, oh my God, I have to be on call for all this time. There are some aspects of that in it, but it's also leavened out by the times where it's not like that. You know,
Hmm.
it's a very fair business, and I will probably retire. Actually, I was just thinking about that. It's just because we're going through a lot of retirements, of course, like a lot of utility businesses are, and the operations manager. He said a real asshole-ish thing to me, after last retirement. He goes, "Well, you're next, aren't you?" And I'm like, "What the hell are you talking about? I still have a
Hmm.
long way to go." And then he starts listing off the people who are. And I'm like, "Shit."
He's got a hit list. Like he's like, oh, this guy's next.
Yeah, no, he was trying to get under my skin, and he did.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, see, that's
But it hadn't been something I'd been considering. Because when I was hired there, I was hired about the same time as this other one of the billing clerks, and you know we've known each other a long time, and we were the youngest people. Besides, we were like you know the third youngest people there. And now it's like we're some of the older ones there, and it's
oh,
kind of it's kind of weird thinking about that because it doesn't seem like I've been in this business that long.
it doesn't. And then yeah, I just had that moment last week. I'm probably um yeah, number two maybe as far as office people they've been there the longest. So that's like an eye opener. Um,
It's when you really think about it that you're like, wow. It's like if I really thought about it, 2 years from now, I'd have my 20 years in. You know, no, I'd only be 57. Then.
yeah.
You know,
Well,
so it's like
oh yeah.
I could
Yeah.
realistically be here till I'm 62 at least.
Does any other industry have such an aged or such commitment to employee longevity? I don't know.
I I don't know. I know at one time, I do know that in the utility business, and this is this is good from
It's
our
bad. What you're
perspective.
saying is bad.
It's good from our perspective, but from a lot of business perspective, it's like the highest paid executives in the United States. When you look at all businesses, utilities tend to be the top ones. And we're
Yeah.
not talking like the Amazon CEOs or anything like that, but when you're talking about the, highest paid executives, of your average businesses, the utility business tends to be on top, you know.
Hmm.
Um, and that's because we're, basically, no matter where we're at, whether we're a private company or public company like we are, we're a monopoly. People have to have our service, for
Hmm.
modern life.
Right. Right.
No, there is
Yeah,
no
it's not
choice.
something you would let them know, like, hey, you got no choice, hey. But it is the truth. So,
Right.
that being said, you can take with what that is and say, okay, well now we're gonna, do the best we can. Um, yeah, so I don't know. The industry is really, really neat. I've learned a lot of things, you
Yeah,
know.
I learn stuff every day. I mean, that's why it's fun. I mean, I enjoy going to work because like no day is like the last day.
Yeah.
You know,
So my last question would be like, what would you give somebody who's new to this, and you have a counterpart who's fairly new? What piece of advice do you have somebody who wants to get into this industry? I honestly didn't know anything about it till I saw a post online, and it was like, "Hey, IT specialist at the time. They're looking for. I knew what IT was, but I didn't know what any other acronyms were, and I was, the kind of the same thing. It was like help build all this stuff up, and then
yeah, I kind of so I had my own computer shop here in Wayne starting in 2001 where we bought and sold gateway wholesale and return merchandise and attached that. Then we were like, we might as well offer local service work. So like, because we didn't advertise for it or anything like that. And one day through the door walks the general manager of the power district saying, "Hey, we need help over here. Do you guys contract out?" I'm like, "Yeah, I could contract out." So
oh, like he
I
was walking the business to business. Like he got out of the bakery, and he was like he was going to come to you next and be like, hey, you do some computer work.
Yeah, so I started working for the power district like in 2003 under contract work, and
Yeah.
helping them improve their systems and stuff like that, and by the time 2007 rolled around when I was actually hired, the gateway business that side of the business had died, and I really didn't want to be a service person around Wayne here because there's only so much you can do, and we were considering my wife had a job offer for UP or down in Omaha, being a dispatcher for UP, which is a really good paying job. Um, and I could just move down there and start a service business down there and make a really good go of it just because of the amount of population down there. Um,
Hmm.
but then, you know, uh, the manager called me over to his office and he's like, well, shut the door. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, here goes this service contract because they're probably hiring somebody to do all this stuff, so which wasn't any big deal. And then he starts talking to me about this AMR project, and I'm like, well, what does that have to do with me? And he's like, well, we want to hire you to head this up and get us up to date on technology. And we negotiated from there, and all of a sudden I was hired at the power district, and I had no clue what a power district was. It's like, oh, I flip the light, it turns on.
Hmm. My wife still thinks that's all that
Yeah, it's
happens.
it's magic. It's like,
Yeah, man. Well, hey, I want to keep this short. This is kind of like a feel good, feel it out
yeah,
episode. I actually learned more about you, which is exactly what I wanted to do. Thanks for coming on, man.
yeah. Thanks for having me. It's fun.
Well, maybe when we get the cameras all nice and our, everything all figured out, maybe we'll
Yeah, I
have
have
to
some
have you.
questions for you on the software too. I won't ask them now, but
Yeah, yeah,
yeah. I mean, can you have multiple cameras on there, multiple microphones,
absolutely. Yeah, I think you can
and
have
then
as many as
can
you
you
want.
stream live and
Yep, you can do all that. Well, I'm not affiliated. I don't have a sponsorship with them or anything like that,
right?
but pretty popular deal. Heck yeah, man. So
Cool.
Hey, we'll talk again soon.
Sounds good.
All right,
Have
thanks,
a good
man.
evening, Brett.
See ya.
Yep. Bye.